Manhattan Bank has been serving the Gallatin Valley since 1905. Started by local farmers in order to help grow the agriculture industry, Manhattan Bank has since grown into a full-service bank serving the entire valley. With branches in Manhattan, Churchill, Three Forks, and Bozeman, you're never far from your local bank.
As banks are consolidating and changing, Manhattan Bank sets themselves apart through consistency and a small-town banking feel. Come see why we have been in the valley for well over 100 years. Stop by the new building in Bozeman, see Justin Skillman and Tyler Dosher for your business banking, and Brad Whitmer for your home loans. Go Cats.
Member FDIC.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R-Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the R&R-Catcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Foley. He's your bearded host, Ryan Thornburg. We are the Ryans of the R&R, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. And we have an awesome sponsor, our Dank Bank and Manhattan Bank, taking care of all your banking needs for locations in the Gallatin County, Bozeman, Churchill, Manhattan, and Three Forks, a bank for the people, by the people, as I like to say. Happy to have those guys on as our corporate sponsor this year. Been awesome supporters of the R&R. But Thorny, basketball's over, man.
Basketball's over. It's a bummer. It was a great ride though, and it'll be fun to talk about the season that was and the upset bid that wasn't to be. But yeah, basketball's over. But it's crazy. We're already into football season almost because Brent Vegan had a press conference today. We're not here to talk about football, but it's just crazy how fast. That's what happens when you play into March. All of a sudden, it's a football spring season ready to go.
It's vegan season, as I came on tonight. I was teaching first period today, and there was this kid. I'm not going to name any names, but he lingered after first period, and he goes, "Nice podcast, Mr. Foley." I was like, "That's all you listen?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he walked out the door. And then a couple periods later, we're doing like some check-ins over the weekend. And this one kid goes, "I found Mr. Foley's podcast. It's called the R&R-Catcast." I was like, "Yeah,
you've been outed."
Well, there it is. There it is. And so I go, well, unless you really want to listen to two guys talk about Montana State athletics, you're not going to like it all that much. But I think I had a couple group of boys who were kind of seeking out the old R&R this weekend, and they had some pretty crap-eating grins on their face when they told me today. It was cool.
Hello, guys.
Shout out to those guys if they're listening. Yeah, right.
Yeah, go easy on Mr. Foley, would you? Yeah, I told my son, I was like, yeah, I'm going to need to bed a little bit early tonight because I got to go do my podcast. He's like, what do you podcast? Like, what do you talk about? Or like, what do you do for your podcast? He doesn't even know what a podcast is. He's 6. Yeah. I was like, oh, we just talk about Montana State. And he just looks at me. He's like, that sounds boring. And I was like, well, honestly, for 99.9% of the population, it is probably extremely boring. And probably even for some of the target demographic Bobcat fans, it is also still pretty boring. So, yeah, buddy, it's boring. I have fun doing it, though. That's all that really matters is you and I have fun hopping on here. And it was fun doing the live watch parties, too. We did those on playback.tv for the semifinal, the final, and the conference tournaments. And then we did the Kansas State game, and that was pretty fun. That was a different experience, and it's actually kind of weird transitioning back to the podcast format because watching the game, like the content is happening for us. All we have to do is like be fans, watch a game, and talk about the game that we're watching. It's a lot easier. There's less pressure to talk during downtimes. Like the stuff's happening for you. You can just be quiet and watch basketball for a minute. So a little bit different transitioning back to the podcast format.
I did like the chat feature. I thought that was really fun, and it just gave us another layer of interactivity with our fans, and that's probably the best part for me.
Yeah. No, it went exactly how I was hoping it would. Some people chiming in. We invited a few people onto the quote stage, and they got their mic on and talked with us for a little bit during one of the games. It was fun. So if people like that, if that's something they want to see, we can maybe dust it off for football season for a game or two. But we'll see.
Okay, well, we're gonna start by going, what's in our golden coolies?
It's back. It's back.
What's in your golden coolie?
I finally got around to putting the file back on the sound pad. I got the new Belgium triple, the Belgian style ale. Good old New Belgium, makers of Fat Tire, right? Pretty sure.
Aren't triples kind of heavy beers, like high alcohol?
Yeah, it's 8.5%. It's really good. Like I actually really like this beer. It's very it's crisp. It's not bitter. I don't know. I'm enjoying it. And the fact that 8.5% beer doesn't hurt anything either. It doesn't taste like that. Some beers that are like that high start tasting very like kind of alcoholic or kind of just, but a little bit different. This one still doesn't taste like you're drinking that high a percentage, which is a dangerous combo, but it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a dangerous combo. The boozy beers that are not boozy, watch out. All right. Thorny, I have one that I've featured before. It's from here in Spokane, Porch Glow Amber Ale from No Lie. Got a 6er of that this weekend. It's like one of the ones my wife and I really kind of agree on. And it's grilling season, man. So we dusted off the grill, got the cover off, It was like mid-50s for the first time over here. Saw that weird thing in the sky that glows and it made you feel all nice and warm inside, you know?
Want to hiss at it at this point? Because like, what is that?
So got some grilling beers, and that was what I have in my fridge. It's good stuff.
Good classic. Good kick off to the summer beer. I haven't done any grilling yet. Excited to fire that up though, because it is finally getting into good weather, man. But yeah, nothing else to say. Look at this. I'm a little awkward on this format. Back in the podcast, back on the saddle, rambling a little bit.
We have to figure out tricky. What to say. We don't have the game to just rely on, just to pause and
we're driving the narrative
thoughts.
right now, and right now it's just kind of driving all over the road.
It's a little bit shaky right now. Okay, well, let's just appreciate Montana State right now. So I'm going to pop into ESPN and just take a look at how good the Montana State Bobcats did. We had a banner season as far as wins go. We were 25-10 overall. We had 15 conference wins. We came in second in the league to Eastern Washington, who had 16 conference wins. Eastern Washington just lost yesterday as we record this on a Monday. They lost to Oklahoma State, down in Oklahoma State in the second round of the NIT. So good showing for them. But they lost three. They lost 3 down the road before getting into the NIT. Montana State was one of those losses. But this isn't about the Eagles. This is about the Bobcats. So 25-10, 2 years in a row, 20 win seasons. That's got to be some applause right there.
I actually think it's 2 years in a row, 25 win seasons. If I heard correctly, I thought I saw that stat somewhere. Really? I think last year. Yeah, let me pull it up real quick because you said that. I'm like, oh yeah, I think last year was the same. So like last year, 27 wins. We were 27-8 last year. So
nice,
crazy. So two 25 plus win seasons in a row, just unbelievable. 52 wins over a 2-year span for Danny Sprinkle and the Bobcats. So something to absolutely applaud. A double sweep of the Grizz this year in both men's and women's basketball. First time since 1999, I believe. And I think Sprinkle got him once last year. So it's like 3 of the last 4 against the Grizz after losing 17 of the previous 18. Something just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was, yes. It just felt good to continue that dominance of Montana in pretty much every single sport. there wasn't very many sports that they beat us in this year. It was kind of crazy. I think they took the volleyball games, a game or two. I'm not sure they swept us in volleyball. They may have, but we beat them in like literally everything else. And basketball was a big statement this year for both programs again. So pretty awesome going 5-0 in the major sports: football, men's basketball, and women's basketball against the greatest. So banner year again in Bobcat athletics, and especially for men's basketball, who competed a lot better this time around against in the March Madness in their game.
Absolutely. When we were going to school in the early 2000s, it just feels like role reversal with the athletic programs for Montana State and the University of Montana. Applause to Leon Costello, Waded Cruzado. I mean, everybody over there in the athletic department. It's for a fan, an alumni like me, it just makes me really proud. Like, I am an extremely proud Bobcat, and just seeing what our university is doing year in and year out, it just feels like it's getting better and more refined every year. I think, Ryan, I know I say it often, I think we're going to be going to bigger things. I don't know. Can we get out of the big sky? I don't know, but it's got to be talked about.
We're definitely
man.
Postured for it, probably better than we ever have been. It just feels like the level of success right now is sustainable. Now, maybe we're not going to go dancing every year. Maybe we won't go to the semifinals or the national championship game every year. But it seems like it's hard to imagine any of the programs slipping back into that middle of the pack, big sky zone right now. And that's such a good feeling to have, not having to worry about, are the Cats going to go 15-15 or 14-16 next year in basketball, or 6-5 or 5-6 in football. It just doesn't seem like that's even like in the realm of possibility. And I can't imagine that being anywhere in the foreseeable future. And, if Sprinkle leaves, if ends up leaving and taking some players with them, we could have some rebuilding there, and that could be challenging. But right now, we're in a great place, and it was a great year. And before we even talk about the ending of the basketball season, it was good to acknowledge what a good year it was and where we are as a program and as a university and an athletic department.
You covered a lot right there.
That's what I do.
Yeah, but it's good. It's a good time to be a Bobcat. I know you put in our notes, it's like the golden era of Bobcat basketball. I would agree with that. At least from my lifetime, it has been.
It is. Yep. Absolutely. No better time for us as Bobcat fans. That's for sure.
All right. Well, let's talk about the game in Greensboro against Kansas State. Montana State earned a 14 seed, and Kansas State came in as a 3 seed in the Big 12, which is arguably the best conference in the United States. So that's going to be a tall task to even stay close to them. Montana State came into the game 8.5-point underdogs. We left with a 12-point deficit. That's an improvement from last year over a 35-point deficit at Texas Tech. So I mean, there's some growth right there. And Montana State certainly had its opportunities to stay in this game. We missed, quite a few threes. We'll get into some stats here, but just from a broad perspective, Montana State could have made some more free throws, could have made some more 3-pointers. We had some really clean looks, and we weren't hitting those. We knew we were going to have to hit those in order to stay competitive in this game. And it just didn't happen. It was kind of frustrating, but to come away with only a 12-point loss, given that. And since then, Kansas State has gone on to beat, who did they knock off? Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. So
Kentucky.
Kansas State's no slouch. We'll get into a couple of their players who are some big-time players. Very proud of the Cats. Raekwon Battle looked all of it. I mean, he is an absolute stud. We'll get into him, and I thought some other players, Great Osborne and Darius Brown had good games as well.
Well, speaking of saying a lot, you just said a lot right there, man. I want to start at the beginning, though. A question before we even start breaking down anything. What do you feel about the Cats getting the 14 seed? Do you think that was deserved? Were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised to be in the East. That was one thing I was really surprised. When they went through the West, I thought we were going to be playing in Denver against either UCLA or Gonzaga. And I was hoping for the Zags, even though I thought we would probably lose that game, but that would have meant we would have been a 14 seed. I didn't think we were going to get a 13. I didn't think we were going to get a 16. I knew that for sure. I thought we were going to get a 15 seed just with the fact that kind of the Big Sky was kind of a down conference this year, at least in our perspectives. But I think the recency of Montana State going back to back kind of helped us get that 14 seed. But looking at it now, I think, in hindsight, probably aptly rated there, or not rated, but seeded there.
It's kind of crazy. You look back at last season to think how good the Cats were heading into the tournament and the big dance, and got a 14 seed last year. And everyone this year, the narrative was like the Big Sky's down, the Bobcats maybe aren't as good. But if you looked at the metrics, the Big Sky had a better net rating than it did last year. It was a higher rated conference, and the Bobcats actually had a higher net rating than they did last year. So I was pounding it in the Big Sky Conference Podcast Network chat. Like, the Cats are going to be a 14 seed, guys. Like, the analytics all point to this, because a lot of them were saying like a 15 seed, hopefully not a 16 seed. And I was like, I just don't see that. The metrics don't say that. And so I think it's right where I thought the Cats would be. It's frustrating to think back that if we hold on against Grand Canyon, which we had we were up like double digits in that game, the very first game of the season against Grand Canyon. We slip at Idaho, and then we go on that 3-game, like that random little tournament we were in, where we play like Middle Tennessee State, lose all 3 of those games. If we hold on against Grand Canyon, we don't lose to Idaho, and we win maybe 2 of those 3 tournament games, the Cats could be a 13 seed, in my opinion. You got to perform better in the out of conference if you want to rise above a 14. So we were right there on the cusp. So I think 14 was just fine, and I was excited to see us get Kansas State. Not because I think we could beat Kansas State, but it just seemed more attainable than some of the other ones. And as we'll get into, it was there for the taking for a little bit. At least it was there to be more competitive than it ended up being.
See, a 13 seed seems to me like a more complete team than a 14 seed. And I don't know, it's just kind of splitting hairs right now. But Montana State's strength was clearly their defense. Where we kind of struggled and lacked was our offensive output. We really don't have prolific scorers, or let me see if I can say this a little bit differently. We don't have consistent scorers. We have guys who can get streaky, but man, and we really try to get our defense, our offense through the post, but I'm talking guys who can just knock down shots. I think that feels like more of a 12 seed, 13 seed than a 14 seed to me.
Maybe. That's all gut feeling, but I don't know.
How about this, Thorny? Put it this way. The team that played at Cheney against Eastern, when we beat them, that would have been a 13 seed. I could see that, making a case for that team.
I think the ceiling was there, but you're right. It wasn't consistent enough. And I always wonder how big of injury that Patrick McMahon ended up being, because I think he could have been a guy who could have gotten streaky when we needed to with the ability to score. We just didn't quite have that one extra guy that we needed. Even a bench player could come off and give you 12 points in in a half. We just didn't really have that this year. And we didn't have that in this game. This was a frustrating game to watch. And where do you want to start with this? I guess real quick, let's just go over the stats kind of like we normally do. Montana State loses the first round game to Kansas State 65-77. The Cats shot, and when I say the Cats, I of course mean us and not the other poorly named Cats. The Cats shoot 46.3%, where KSU shot 58.2%. 3-pointers, 6 for 21 from Montana State. Kansas State, not a lot better. In fact, worse, 4 for 15. So they shot 26.7 from deep. Both teams, not great from the free throw line, but I guess it actually got better. It was worse than I remembered, or it's better than I remembered for Kansas State. They were 9 for 12 for 75%. The Cats just 9 for 17, though, 52.9%. And that's one of the frustrating things about that, too, is like free throw shooting doesn't matter who you're playing. That's nothing to do with the opponent. You got to the line to shoot the ball 17 times, and you made just over half of them. Terrible. 27 rebounds, so 29 for Kansas State, so the rebounding was pretty even. We held Kansas State to just 6 offensive rebounds. I was afraid we would get killed on the offensive boards. But I guess when our team's shooting 58% from the floor. There's not a ton of rebounds to be had, but rebounds are pretty even. Total rebounds, like I said, 27 to 29. Nothing jumps out there. We had 14 assists. They had 21 assists, so they were getting the ball into their playmakers' hands. 8 steals for us, 9 for them, so pretty even in that regard. 3 blocks apiece, 16 turnovers for the Cats, 14 for Kansas State. And those are the main stats from the team's perspective. And you can probably listen to that and kind of identify some of the problems that the Cats had that could have gone better, that has gone better many times this season, that would have made this game closer.
Give us 3 more threes, 5 more, makes from the stripe. I mean, we're talking a really different game. A really different game, right? A lot of those threes were open looks too. So that's
almost
on Montana
all of them
State.
were. Well,
yeah.
Yep. Those are open shots, and free throws, open shots. You got to make those if you're going to win a game in the Big Dance.
I thought Kansas State did a real good job at denying our passes inside. And that's how we run our offense, is trying to get the ball down to Jabril or Great. And they just did such a great job of off-ball defense and just being able to help out when help was needed. And we weren't able to adjust for that. We didn't have an answer for that. I think maybe next year, if Sprinkle stays around or however next year goes, that there needs to be an answer for that. There needs to be a secondary, okay, we're not being able to get it in. How do we run our offense when that's not there?
I mean, I think you saw what we can do. I mean, we found out what they were doing and we got what we wanted from it. But yes, the problem is we can't hit them. So yeah, Sprinkle needs to adjust, I think, more on the personnel side than he does in like the schematic side or anything like that. Unless there's I don't know, I couldn't see any other way to score. Like they had a guy posted up in front of either Bello or Osibor, because they know that you couldn't lob it over the top of them because they had a guy just standing like a little sneaky ninja right behind him. Like every time.
Yeah, they always.
So as soon as the ball was in the air to the center, there was a guy just attacking in the air and batting it away. It happened over and over. So those lanes were not there, and we couldn't really take too much advantage of that. I mean, that's what led to 21 3-pointers. We weren't necessarily down. It wasn't a situation where we were down by 20 and just started raining threes trying to catch back up. They were there all game, and we were taking them because they were the open shot. And we were moving the ball around and getting the open shot with some skip passes to some wide open guys, but just nobody could hit them unless your name was Raekwon Battle. It was painful. Fuller missed his first one pretty badly, and he just decided not to ever shoot the ball.
I'm done.
He took 3 shots all game long. Caleb Fuller, 3 shots, 2 points. Patterson missed his first one, and then his second one, and then his third one, and his fourth one. 0 for 4 for Tyler Patterson. He had a nice little pull-up jumper at the free throw line where he made a nice cut into the paint. That was a good cut. Those are good plays right there. That's the other thing. If they're taking away the interior, you should be able to find at least some mid-range jumpers. Is there no mid-range game in Montana State? I know that's kind of a old style of basketball that people don't play anymore. You either dunk it or you shoot 3-pointers. It's the only thing people do. But there had to be something else. But the shooting was just not there from anywhere. I mean, Darius Brown finally connected on a couple, but he ended up 2 for 7 from downtown. And Gazales actually hit one thing. Gazales came in, knocked one down, so kudos to him. But Ford was 0 for 2 and 0 for 4 from the field. He had 1 point on a free throw attempt. They weren't because Kansas State was forcing us to take those, and I'm sure that was part of their plan, knowing that we're not a great 3-point shooting team. But Kansas State wasn't in your face contesting those 3-pointers. So many of them were good looks. I don't know if I could really think of one, maybe at the end of a shot clock, that was a bad shot.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It seems to me that we made some kind of errant shots as well. How many times did we on the cast get kind of frustrated with Darius Brown for, on his drives, just dishing it out? And we're like, come on, man, just go up with that. At one point, you got to draw the contact.
Yeah.
Got to take it to the hole. and finish instead of getting so close to finishing and then zipping it out for a 3-point play that we would miss. That was kind of frustrating as well. It seemed like some of the Cats were trying to make the extra pass. They were, I don't know about you, Ryan, but they looked a little nervous a little bit or a little uptight. They weren't playing loose.
No, they weren't. They weren't playing for fun. They weren't playing like it's their last game and just go out there and give it your all. I don't remember who it was. It may have been Fuller on a very specific drive where he got to the paint. The Kansas State big just decided to just let him have it. And he just threw it back to somebody. And I actually think he threw it back to Brown, who hit a 3-pointer. So it ended up, remember, we were like, oh, well, never mind. I guess it worked. But that happened a couple times, like you said, where a player got to the rim or close to the rim and just passed it off. And it didn't even look like it was going to be all that contested at the rim.
No.
And it was just a little perplexing. Nobody wanted to be the guy except for Battle. Battle was the dude. We didn't even talk about Battle, really. 27 points, 9 of 17 shooting in 33 minutes because he had to sit the last 8 minutes of the first half. And I do want to ask you, do you agree with sitting him for that long in that part of the game? But anyway, he also finished with 3 rebounds, a steal, and 27 points. So good game by Battle. He showed out. And if you go on Twitter and read about it, Kansas State fans are clamoring for him to come play in Manhattan next year. They want him on the team. They're impressed with him. Come play for Kansas State. Come play with our program. But he was the only reason that the Bobcats were in this game because no one else rose to the occasion.
No, taking him out 8 minutes till half. I think either Victor Flores or maybe it was Parker Cotton who asked Coach Sprinkle about that in the press conference thereafter. Sprinkle was quick to say, hey, we went on a run when we pulled Raekwon out. I'm looking at the Gamecast, though. We were pretty flat. We went on big scoring drought. Remember that right before halftime? It's almost about, it looks like about 6-7 minutes in there where we had minimal scoring, but they didn't score much at all during that time either. We were getting stops on both ends, but we weren't scoring. So I don't know. It's tough. You don't want to sacrifice your best player for the second half, but sitting him for 8 minutes, closing the half when he's your hottest player. I remember you asking me, he's like, man, does that just cool him off? But then Raekwon came out and hit 2 shots right away, right out of halftime. So we were like, well, I guess that was answered. He still got it. But that's, that was one thing we kind of took our best player off the floor.
So Raekwon Battle got his second foul with 6:18 left in the game. It was 23-27 at that point. So we were down by 4, and we ended 28-34 at halftime. I don't know what run necessarily Sprinkle's talking about. We got to 25-28, then it was 25-30, then it was 25-32, and then it was 25-34, and then it was 27-35. Yeah, what happened after Battle got kicked out for the Bobcats? Let's see. We had Montana State defensive rebound. Tyler Patterson missed 3-point jumper. Robert Ford III steal. Darius Brown missed 3-pointer. Jabril Bello missed free throw. Darius Brown missed layup.
Yeah.
Great Osibor turnover. So those were the next 2 minutes after Battle was taken out. We didn't score a point. We didn't score a point. We missed some free throws. We missed a layup. We missed 2 3-pointers. We turned the ball over. There you go. Great Osibor made jumper at 3:34. So that was almost 3 minutes after Battle was taken out before we scored another point.
Yeah, I went from 23 to 25.
We don't go scoreless for 3 minutes of Battles in the game.
I know. That's tough, man. That's really tough. And just to see Bello struggle from the line, that was tough.
Yeah. I mean, he's been prone to that, but it's just he can hit them, and he had been hitting them recently.
Thorny, to be honest, though, were you expecting the Cats to win this game? I know you weren't. We texted each other. You were seeing you said a 12% chance, and I was at 17% chance or something. So we were pretty low. I mean, not even
Of
like
course.
1 out of 5, but like in the heat of the moment, it just, you believe, right? We're not
Well, yeah,
fans and going
it's
like,
always
well, we're going to
easy
go
to
lose
say.
this game.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough.
My analytical brain before the game starts, of course, I'm like, this is going to be a tough game. But then you get into it and you start playing basketball and you're like, well, we're making shots. This is like a 4-point game. Why can't we win this game? And you start like to get
Sure.
the hope. But in reality, it's funny. It's the weirdest thing in sports when you predict a loss and then you go in and you see the loss and you're mad about losing. But you
Yeah.
totally thought you were going to lose. So it's just a weird sports thing. It's a very weird sports thing. It's like, I knew I was going to lose.
I kind of knew it was up for us when Marquise Noel hit that fallback 3-pointer that was just the moon shot. And every time we hit a tray or a bucket, they came back and answered. We couldn't get a stop. They just hit so many shots there. And for a while, it felt like in the second half, they were just throwing things at the rim and everything was going down. Like, well, all right. If it's going to be like that, the way the Cats played in the second half, I mean, we only lost the second half by, they scored 43, we scored 37, so 6 points, but it felt like the Wildcats, dominated us in the second half. And it was just because it felt like a slow, inevitable loss. And you're just like, man, it was just really frustrating. It was all coming to an end.
It was a weird game.
It was.
It was weird. Like you felt like at points you're like, how are we not getting blown out by more? And then at other points you're like, well, if we just hit two more of our 3-pointers, we're like tied. It's like,
yeah,
it was a really weird game to like gauge the flow of for the Cats. I mean, the second half we never got too close. I think we got it to. Do we ever even get it to 4? We may have got.
I think we did
at one point.
Yeah, I think we did.
And there was a point where maybe it was 6, or maybe it was even somewhere right around there. But when Bello missed that layup, that wide open layup, he got the ball down there and just went up and just doinked it too hard off the square onto the other side of the rim, and it bounced off. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, why didn't he dunk that?
Yeah.
Like that's what gets Bello like the Hulk, like an angry dunk. Nothing to get Bello going like a dunk, man. And he had a wide open dunk, and he chose to lay it up. And after talking about the press conference about like the aggressor wins the games, it was tough. It was tough to see him like go out like that. He's such an awesome Bobcat, one of the best to ever do it, and he just kind of, just didn't have a great game. But he wasn't the only one. Obviously, the only one who really had a great game was Battle. A couple other guys had okay games, but it was tough. That layup was a backbreaker. That missed layup. I was like, oh, well, done that. Just about sum it up. Oh,
yeah,
painful.
There's a little bit of a microcosm for the game. I think Coach Sprinkle talked about that a little bit in his presser afterwards. He's like, yeah, this game kind of felt like a microcosm of our season. And it was. It's a defensive struggle with some scoring droughts in there, and he's right. Thorny, what does Montana State need to do in order to take the next step?
Right now, I feel like, I mean, it seems like you're a shooter away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one more guy who can come in and knock him down. And this isn't like what we do on this podcast, but I feel like we need an upgrade from Tyler Patterson. And I like Tyler Patterson. Like, there's no reason not to like Tyler Patterson, but we need someone who can consistently knock down shots. And his defense I thought he was a pretty good defender in the Big Sky play, but he got taken to school a little bit by Kansas State. He got kind of picked on a little bit, and he couldn't make his jump shots on top of that, his long-range shots. So I think Patterson's a guy who, if he could come in and just focus on shooting and not have to focus on being a lockdown defender all game, like just that's where he could spend his energy getting streaky, getting hot, and then just go back onto the bench. I think that might be a better role for him. If we could get someone who could come in and kind of be that every down. I'm so football focused. Like more of a, all around player who can come in and knock down some shots more than Patterson was able to this year, because he kind of took a step back in the in the shooting department from deep. We need maybe it's not an upgrade from Tyler Patterson. We just need someone else who can knock in some shots and who's not afraid to take the shot, I guess. We need someone who's like a little bit of a selfish offensive player.
Yeah. Heard good things. Jed Miller is a guy that keeps popping up as far as like a name here for who can shoot the ball. Patrick McMahon. I mean, we didn't get to see him.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to see, Alex Germer, to see what kind of, he was a prolific scorer in high school. 6'8", he's got all the length, man. He could be that guy, right? He could be your replacement who could knock down some shots. But yeah, I think you're right. I like your assessment. I think we're a shooter away. I'm going to say something that this might be completely false on me, because maybe I'm just an untrained eye, but I'm not a huge fan of our offense. I really am not. I think it's kind of predictable, and I know we're trying to run everything through the high post, but I would like to see more slashing in our offense. That's just my personal opinion. I like to see some more slashing and some more dynamic guard play.
I don't see why if we get it to the Bello or Osibor and they're double teamed, like, why aren't guys cutting to the basket? Like, I don't know, maybe Bello and Osibor just aren't good passers, and that's demonstrated in practice, and Sprinkle knows best. It just seems like there's plenty of opportunities for guys to cut. If we have guys who can consistently draw two players away from the rim, why aren't the other players going to the rim every once in a while? We didn't see too much of that. We didn't get a whole lot of easy buckets from that kind of action. We'd get easy buckets from, like, Brown was able to beat some guys off the dribble once in a while and lay it in pretty easily, or we would lob it over a 6'7" big sky forward's head and Bello would catch it and then dunk it. But other than that, scoring kind of came hard for the Bobcats.
It did. You're right. We're going to miss guys like Bello, but, I think Great's already a better scorer than Bello does. He has more refined skills around the rim. Looking at the thing, Fuller, he's gone, but if we could retain everybody, that's the biggest question. Like, are these guys coming back? I guess
sure.
That's the question that looms in the hearts of all the Bobcats right now. Is Danny Sprinkle going to stay around? And, you talked to me yesterday. You kind of said like something like, "Gotta strike where the iron's hot." Like if people come calling for Sprinkle, and they will, who could like blame him right now for, moving on if he has the chance? And money speaks, and who knows if that's always going to be there. But in the back of my head, a little bit, selfishly as a Bobcat fan, I think Danny Sprinkle has a real possibility to build this Montana State team into a real mid-major, like a real good mid-major. Montana State is priming themselves, like you said, they're positioning themselves in such a way to kind of explode. Like, if he stays, and let's say we go Mountain West or Division I, not Division I, we're already Division I, but we go into a bigger conference, get more money, TV deal, blah, blah, blah. We can afford better salaries. Everybody's happy now. Montana State could become a really rich basketball school. And so it's just kind of, right now, I think Ryan, and I want to kind of transition to this, the whole Sprinkle talk. Do you think he's built enough? If he was to leave tomorrow, let's say he gets hired on, does this continue, or do we take a big step back?
I think we'd take a big step back.
Yeah, me too.
In the short term, I think a lot of guys will leave. I don't know if Battle would follow Sprinkle. I don't know the transfer rules enough. He used I've heard people say he used his one-time transfer rule to already go to the Cats, but I thought guys could just transfer whenever, wherever. So I don't fully understand that.
I think Battle would
I think
go
Bozeman's
with
I think it's a really good fit for Battle here, because his Native American heritage is so important to him, and it's such a big part of the Montana State campus and Bozeman, and they have that relatively new like Native American Studies Center, which I saw like at Cat Grizz. It's a really nice looking facility. I think it's really important to him. So I think it'd have to go somewhere where that's also a part of the culture of the campus, and that's not going to be a lot of places. So
Sure.
I think that might keep Battle in Bozeman. It'd be hard not to follow Sprinkle if he ends up somewhere, a big time program, I don't know, in the Pac-12 or something like that. I think Battle would likely follow him. That it's such a good point to think about. Is there a carrot dangling right now from like Leon Costello to the rest of the various, head coaches of a potential FBS new conference alignment?
Yeah.
Because you could sit there and say like Sprinkle can, talk about like, hey, I'll be honest with you, Leon, I'm talking to this program, they're interested in me, whatever, But if we're going to potentially get an invite to the Mountain West in a year or 2, 3, 4, does Sprinkle stick around? Because the Mountain West did not fare very well in the tournament this year, but they had 3 or 4 teams in the tournament. I mean, if somehow we get into at least a Mountain West level type conference, that changes everything.
It certainly does.
People always talk about football when you're moving up. Basketball is huge.
Basketball.
The Big Sky Conference is a bad basketball conference. It is. There's so many better ones, and there's a lot of them even in the West that are better basketball conferences than the Big Sky.
Yeah. It just, my thought today as I was driving home just comes back to this. Montana State's at a really interesting crossroads right now. Like, I think if Sprinkle decided to stay and invest his time here, knowing full term, like, let's say, like you said, if Costello has some inside information, say, hey guys, we're pushing for this. This is the 5-year plan for us right now. We're going to be here. We're here right now, but we're going there. Montana State has right now the makings of like an infantile mid-major program that could be really, really solid, like a perennial, 12, 11, 10 seed if we continue building this. But we don't have that. I don't know if it's not the culture. We just don't have the continued success that just breeds that right now. No. We don't have the cupboards aren't that full. We have a guy like Raekwon Battle who can play at any place in the United States. I would argue Great Osborne is probably a player who could play probably anywhere right now, but we need at least 2 to 3 more guys like that. It's just like that. I mean, you see it when we play these big time programs. We have 2 to 3 studs that we got to rely on, but they got 6 to 7 studs that they're going to throw at us. So it's just a little bit of a body type thing that we got to build up, put some more pounds on our guys, get some bigger length, but we just need some better dudes. And Montana State continuing to go into the Big Sky Conference and winning and going to the national dance and then, having this awesome coach, that's just a magnet for those type of players to come. So if Sprinkle leaves, I think you're right. Thorny, we take a step back, go on a national hire. Who knows, maybe we'll hire within the tree, but we'll cross that road when we get there. But Montana State could be at a really good place right now, but it's kind of a crossroads. You take one path this way and the other path the other way. 2 different stories.
Yeah, maybe if Sprinkle's still here in 2 years, you start to think like, is he here because we're getting closer to an invite? Is that why he's still
or is it like
around?
That Travis DeCure stuff where he was like so hot for like a couple years and then like now he's just like, it's Travis DeCure. You're like, well, maybe that ship passed or something. I don't know. You never want to get stale.
The Grizz fans will tell you that I talked to. Like, they're like, take a job if it comes. Don't be like Travis DeCure, who had some opportunities. I think he passed on back when the Grizz were going dancing or in the Big Sky Conference Championship game every year. And now they've lost that edge. And now he's just a top 3 or 4 coach in a Big Sky Conference currently. And that doesn't mean they won't get better again. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a hater right now, Grizz fans, but the Grizz aren't the top program right now, and no one's poaching the the number 3-4 coach in the Big Sky Conference.
That's a good point. So
not to be a head coach, anyway. Doesn't mean he couldn't go be an assistant coach somewhere, then work his way back up to head coach at like a better program. But yeah, the thing when I say that I think the Cats would take a step back is so many of those, like the Grizz are a great example of this, and this is where I'll give them a lot of credit. The coaching tree in Missoula is incredible. They just have guys that are assistant coaches. So when that coach goes on, the assistant coach comes in, and then he's the stud, and then he goes on, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure there's anyone on the staff right now at Montana State. I know Chris Haslam's a name that people will bring up a lot. And then is it Andy Hill, the guy we have, like the first-year guy? Something Hill. I don't entirely know the staff. But we just don't have that established tree yet. And then maybe one of those guys gets the job, and then that is the beginning of it. But we just don't have the obvious candidate to me if Sprinkle goes like, oh, it's okay, we got this guy. Like, it just doesn't feel like we have that here at Montana State. Even Eastern Washington has had that in spades. They just have coach after coach over there.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Money speaks. I mean, Danny Sprinkle could go make generational money here in the next year, and can't fault him for that. But until then, Montana State Collective is going to hold their breath and kind of hold on, on hope. Yep. And that's just unfortunately, that's for everything. It's for football. It's for any type of successful programs that Montana State has. With the rising cost of Bozeman and just, it is what it is. So.
It is. I was pretty excited last year when Xavier Bishop and Mohammed and Amandamu all decided to come back. That was pretty cool.
That was special.
They decided to run it back together. So maybe some of these guys will decide to run it back. I don't know. Montana State hasn't been hit as brutally hard by the transfer portal. I know you'll go right to Isaiah Fonze on this, but it hasn't been as bad as some other programs. And we'll see if that trend continues. Montana State's had better luck retaining players than some other programs in pretty much all sports. But eventually, someone throws enough money at a couple of your players and you're toast. And so here's to hoping that the main core comes back. We can find a few pieces in the portal, ironically, and if we need them, if maybe they're on the roster already and we just don't know about it yet. We're not privy to that stuff. But I'm excited, man. Like, there's going to be a lot of returning talent next year. If everything comes back the way it is, Sprinkle comes back, like there's no reason that the next year's version of the Bobcats can't be competing for another Big Sky Conference championship and another trip to the Big Dance.
Yeah. Could be even better than we are this year. And that's scary to think.
Yeah, in some ways.
I thought we did, in kind of some summation thoughts, I thought we did better at the point this year. I loved watching Darius Brown. Robert Ford was such a really good lockdown defender towards the end of the year. That guy came on. Caleb Fuller is just in there in the mix and really such a good defender as well. I'd love to see a little bit more Nick Gonzalez. I'm looking forward to seeing Jed Miller and Patrick McMahon and Alex Germer coming up. And, when Sprinkle got hired, Thorny, one of the thoughts I remember him saying was, because I'm never going to get mad at a player for shooting. As long as they look at me, then I won't pull them out. And sometimes, I don't know if you said it or something, but Sprinkle letting these guys just shoot? Is he micromanaging him during the game? What's your thought on that?
Well, I think what I said was like, and I think I was just echoing something somebody said on Bobcat Nation. Like, Sprinkle just needs to let his athletes go out there and just make plays. Because sometimes it feels like you have to go into the box that Sprinkle has created, like the system, and you have to play within those constraints. Especially sometimes when you're down 10 points with 5 minutes left, get out of your game plan. Just get out of your comfort zone. Just give it to your best ball player and let him try and win the game or something like that. Like there's certain strategies you can take, and I don't know. That's what I think somebody was saying, and I could totally agree with that. Sometimes it just feels like that we are sometimes just forcing like a square peg into a round hole in some ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm good, dude. Unless you need some other thoughts on this game or this season.
I think we got everything out on this one. Probably a bit rambling. getting back into the groove of the podcast. And then, of course, we won't podcast for a while probably because there won't be a whole lot to talk about. Maybe a spring episode about football. And if the spring game is on any sort of way we can do a watch party, we could do that. But other than that, I think we're going to be taking our break here, taking our annual R&R kind of break that we do every year when there's not much else to talk about. Well, all right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Oh, wait, what?
That's good.
I thought you said something. I thought you had one more last thing to say. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening all year. Thanks everyone for joining us on the couple watch parties that we did. That was pretty fun. Thanks for following us along on Twitter and Bobcat Nation and interacting with us in all the various platforms. We really appreciate it. It makes doing the podcast a lot more fun, knowing that there's so many people out there who appear to be enjoying the podcast and at least appear to be. You can always find us on Twitter, our Catcast, bobcatnation.com. We're pretty active on there. And Facebook, Instagram, our Catcast, pretty much everywhere you'd want to go. So thanks again to our sponsor, Manhattan Bank, on that one. So let's get out here, man, for the last time on this athletic calendar year, I guess. Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.